Are you ready for church? Well, it's Tracy Teagarden's church. It's the Temple of Five Nines. Yeah, Tracy Teagarden, chief engineer for Entercom in Las Vegas, is our guest. Chris Tobin's here too, coming up on TWiRT. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support online at bgs.cc. By the Ruby Console from Lavo. See Lavo in your future at lavo.com/TWiRT. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by the CalRec Type R console system. Type R is a brand new, modular, expandable IP-based radio system from CalRec Audio. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower. And we got a great show today. One of my favorite people is here, and I think my co-host Chris Tobin knows him as well. By the way, I'm Kirk Harnack. I work for the folks at the Telos Alliance, and happy to be there. I've been there, over 19 years now. So 20 years is next year. I think they bake a cake or something for me, so excited about that. I'm in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee. Appreciate the supplies that they put for me here in the studio, some things here and some stuff back in the rack, and give me a little time off to do This Week in Radio Tech. So thanks a lot, Telos Alliance. Now, that's enough about me. We got a beautiful day going on here weather-wise, end of summer, but it's cooler. Chris Tobin is my co-host. Chris is off somewhere in the New York City area. Chris, welcome in.
Well, thank you. I'm in the studio in a voice booth, and just quickly ran in to get things going. So I'm up and running, ready to go.
Good deal. You had a nice day weather-wise there. Has it been getting a little cooler finally, or not?
Oh well, actually, it was cooler last week, and then last 2 days the humidity has gone up. The dew point is now about 70 degrees, so it's becoming noticeably uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, you think uncomfortable. You know what our guest is going to talk about today.
Yes, I know.
I was waiting for either you or me to say something about, oh, it's so hot.
No. I know all too well what Tracy's going through.
You know that old phrase. Yeah, but it's a dry heat. Yeah, well, so
yeah, so's your oven.
God first. Hey, let's bring in our guest Tracy Teagarden from Entercom in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hey, Tracy, welcome in.
Thank you.
And how hot is your oven?
Slightly cooler than standing outside in the heat these days. So
yeah. We're going to get to it. We got a commercial break to hit first, but we're going to get some stories from you about super duper heat and changing some blower equipment, I believe, and 200 degree exhaust blowing on you. And by the way, if we can talk technical here for just a second, that thing about, so's my oven. If I'm not wrong, when you're baking something in the oven, it's actually pretty moist in the oven. Every time I open an oven and there's something baking in there, I get hit with a face full of not only heat, but humidity. It feels pretty moist. Now, I realize a 375 degree oven, air that's that hot will hold a lot of moisture, but a lot of baking, I mean, not to get ticky here, but a lot of baking, isn't it due to we're getting the moisture out of the product? Yeah.
Well, are we talking about a gas oven?
Oh,
because one of the products of natural gas combusting is water.
Sure, you're right. You're exactly right about that. I have an electric oven, and when I open it up, I feel usually. I mean, it depends on what's cooking, but if there's a casserole in there, something that's bubbling and boiling, if there's some peach pie, cherry pie, apple pie, I get a face full of moisture.
Sure.
What do you think? Yeah.
I think that could be possible. It's not like an oven. It's like living in a hairdryer.
Yeah, that's it. Living in a hairdryer. And I'm sorry to hit so many tangents here, but I was wondering when they were going to come out with it. We're all familiar with the Dyson brand of vacuum cleaner, right? And supposedly they don't lose suction. Well, I'll tell you that they do if you let them get too dirty. But and they've come out with those hand dryers at the airport. You put your hands in like this, Okay.
Yes.
And they come out with those kind of elongated looking oval fans, right, for a room that'll oscillate back and forth and blow air. And they create a lot of extra air blow by creating it's not a vortex, or is it? They blow a circle of air, and then more air enjoins that air, and so you get extra air. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Well, I was wondering, when are they going to come out with a hairdryer? And they did. So I don't mean to sound all frou-frou, but I got my hair cut last Saturday, and my hairstylist has this literally a $400 Dyson hairdryer, and it is the coolest thing. First of all, it's a lot quieter than a normal hairdryer. And by cool, I mean it's neat. It does put out hot air if you want it to, but it is so quiet. And I'm thinking, I wonder what if Dyson air technology, not that they have that, I don't have the patent or not. Well, what if we could apply that to transmitters? Could we cool transmitters, air cool them better, and with maybe less electricity by using that kind of, technology to enjoin additional air into the flow? Tracy, you got a thought about that? Or am I crazy?
Here's my thought about that. I have 6 Nautel NV series transmitters. So replacing roughly 37,682 pancake fans with little Dyson things sounds like more effort than I want to put in.
Well, from Dyson, that would cost more than the transmitters cost. I'll tell you that.
Yes,
they're very proud of their digital motors. Chris, you got a thought about Dyson and if their tech could be used in broadcast?
I think their tech, though it works very well on a small scale, your space around you. I'm not sure if the cost of being able, as Tracy points out, the cost of cooling such a large volume of heat with their technology probably would be greater than the investment of the transmitter.
Might be. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Just an impertinent thought about Dyson after getting my hair coiffed with a Dyson hairdryer.
$400 hand dryer?
Yeah, $400 hairdryer. Yeah, $400 hairdryer. Those ones in the airports, I wonder what they cost. When you the air blades, you put your hands in, those things have got to be pricey. I'm thinking a couple grand. Yeah. Oh, well. Hey, we got transmitters to talk about. I promise you, we're not going to talk about air dryers the whole time. Tracy's got some interesting stories for us, including a huge switchover to VoIP at a facility that he takes care of. Also, can you multiplex 7 AM transmitters into a set of towers? Wow, sounds complicated, but Tracy's got the scoop on that. It's all coming up as we move along with This Week in Radio Tech. We'll be right back.
TWiRT is CalRec's first native IP-based mixing console. It is fully AES-67 and NMOS IS-04 and IS-05 compatible as defined by SMPTE 2110. Connectivity via Cat5e utilizing COT switches and power to the surface is supplied via standard PoE switches to minimize cabling. Its 2U core has integrated I/O, so you're instantly up and running, and it can power up to 3 independent mixing environments, each with their own separate DSP resources. TWiRT's surface is modular and expandable, consisting of 3 slimline panels, each of which are user-definable with layouts saved and recalled quickly between shows. It's available in 4 DSP packs, and as your station grows, larger packs can be added, making TWiRT the most flexible radio console you can buy. Find out more at calrec.com/TWiRT.
Thanks a lot to CalRec for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Go to calrec.com/TWiRT. Hey, This Week in Radio Tech is also brought to you by my friends at Angry Audio. That's angryaudio.com. We've been talking about their gadgets and gizmos for almost a year now. And I want to let you know that if you're one of those people who loves the Studio Hub connection products, and that is, things like this right here, the XLR to an RJ45, or maybe you like the other way where the male RJ45 is on the cable and then the other end is this. And then the cable can be, 6 feet long or so, or different lengths if you like. Well, these cables are still available. Now, they don't say Studio Hub on them, but they're made in the same factory, and they're made by the same people who made the Studio Hub ones. Maybe you've called your dealer and said, hey, I want to buy some Studio Hub adapters or some cables. And the answer is, oh, they're not making those anymore. Well, they are. Now they just say Angry Audio on them. And here's a deal from Angry Audio. If you buy the Studio Hub adapter, and that's what's just shown on the screen right now. That's the one with the female RJ45, and whether it comes out in XLRs, male or female, or the 1/4 inch, the dual tip ring sleeve, or the RCA, or the dual mini plug, whichever one you buy, you get a free 7-foot Cat5 cable. That's right. They'll throw one in for each one you buy. So no matter which kind you get, the cables or the adapters, that is the ones with the male RJ45 or the female, if you buy the female one, you get a free Cat5 cable that is 6 feet long, and it's made just to go along with it. So it's really cool. Check that out. Get on the angryaudio.com, join their mailing list like the pop-up says. And here's something else you should know. If you've been accustomed to buying the Studio Hub adapter cables, the ones from Angry Audio, which are exactly the same, made in the same factory, same people, they cost 25% less. That's right. 25% less is the list price as compared to the list price of the Studio Hub products. And it's the same product. Exactly. So call your favorite dealer, tell them you want some Angry Audio adapters or cables, and, they're compatible with Studio Hub 100%. Tell them you want your free Cat5 cable that's 7 feet long with each one you buy, and tell them that the pricing had better be about 25% less than you used to pay with Studio Hub, because they are that much less. Thanks a lot to Angry Audio for sponsoring the show. Check them out at angryaudio.com. That's angryaudio.com. All right. Tracy Teagarden's our guest. We're going to jump right into it now. Tracy, I think it seems like the biggest thing on your mind lately was that hot experience you had, and how to stay alive while doing broadcast engineering in the heat. Kind of set the stage for us, and then tell us how to stay alive.
The stage can be set. We have 3 Class Cs on Black Mountain, local site out in Henderson. It's a negative pressure building because makeup air is too hard to come by for some landlords. And all of our transmitters have 1 or 2 horse, high CFM blowers. If those blowers fail, they eat themselves alive in minutes, not even hours. KMXBs had failed. One of my guys, Fred, went up, dismantled it, drug it down, knew that we weren't going to get it running on site. So I dismantled the shaft out, the squirrel cage out, all the parts out that I could recover. Got new pillow bearings, new motor, bunch of new things. It took me about 4 hours to rebuild it there on Black Mountain. You're away from utilities like restrooms and running water and all those things. About 4 hours, and it was about 116 degrees that day. And you're outside, and you're keeping as much air moving as you can coming through that Nautel NB40 running neg 20 and with 200 degree exhaust air, about 4 hours, about 3 gallons of water, making sure you're getting in and out of the building where, it was a balmy 90 in the building at that time. So, that's 90 is Nevada for cooling off. So get that done. Being very conscious of what's going on with your person and where you're at, because it is really, really super easy to injure yourself in that heat.
You use the word injure, and during the pre-show, you used that word also, and that's a kind of a different term than I would have thought people would use for being exposed to super high heat for a while. Tell me what you mean by being injured by that kind of heat and work.
What I would qualify as an injury is anything that impacts your ability to keep working if you are dehydrated to the point where you can't move anymore, or you can't function anymore, you're injured.
Okay.
So, and I know lots of people that have wound up in the hospital over heat injuries here. It is your first thought when you're going out to do anything in this environment.
You mentioned that this building is a negative pressure building, and man, it's been 35 plus years ago when I wrote an article in back then Broadcasting Magazine about how a negative pressure building is a bad idea. And you mentioned that the landlord of the building won't spend the money to make it a positive pressure building. What are some of the drawbacks in your mind of a negative pressure building? And does the negative pressure building have any impact on the failure of the blower that was somewhat difficult to fix?
It most certainly does. Some of the major negative impacts are you rip the door handles off trying to get in every once in a while because the doors won't open.
They're sucked shut.
They're sucked shut. The dirt sickles that grow around everywhere that air can get in is a tremendous problem. I understand this landlord's angst with trying to update the system because pre-cooling 117 degree air to bring it into a transmitter site is a very challenging proposition. But this building is and always has been that way. That's why we have to use so much forced air cooling on our transmitters. Of course, when we had tube transmitters, they had forced air cooling built into them. Now that we're mostly solid state, we have to get fancy. And rebuilding that blower on the hottest day of the year was specifically because of the conditions of that building and what we need to do to run a transmitter up there.
This blower, I suppose it consists of a motor and some kind of big squirrel cage or fan. Yeah.
It's one of those mushroom jobs you might see on top of a restaurant. One horse blower and a big impeller underneath it, just keeping the air moving, trying to suck more air out of that building when it's already at like -3 bar.
In thinking about the forensic analysis that you probably did, what part failed first? Was it the pillow bearing or bearings, or what?
The pillow bearings. This one had been running about 4 years, roughly 4 years. And for those who don't know what a pillow bearing is, it's a bearing housed in a float, and then the shaft is held solid, and then the entire assembly can float. What happened is that float just deteriorated and gave it too much play, ate itself alive. I had been up there the week prior and said, I really ought to do something about that, and then didn't. So I picked my poison by rebuilding it in the heat. We are using those. Virtually every broadcaster on the mountain has some version of that. And they, golly, are constant maintenance.
Yeah. Wow. I think they are for restaurants too, although at a restaurant, they're probably not on 24/7. And although they probably get grease covered or some other nasty things. Hey, Chris Tobin, you do a lot of New York City rooftop stuff, are those kind of blowers in place there for transmitters, or they have other systems for keeping transmitters cool?
Primarily air conditioning systems, or the conventional type that we're familiar with. What's happening? A lot of the facilities now are going to large open areas so they can cool the one space with the chillers, chilled water, heat exchangers, all kinds of stuff now. So it's whereas in the past you would have had a rooftop room area or a mechanical room area. Everyone had an individual room, doors, the whole bit, and the air conditioning was a nightmare. Now it's becoming more of a open area, like a data center type approach, without the cages. Because they're all secure locations, so it's not like as if you have to worry about public showing up, getting in trouble. But yeah, for us here, but I mean, unlike out where Tracy is, and in parts of the South, we have swamp coolers and stuff for cooling. Here in the Northeast, it's slightly different.
Tracy, I was wondering about we've had some guests on talking about liquid cooled transmission systems. We saw a great one there, a bunch of them in New York City at the new One World Trade Center. And we've had a representative from Roden Schwartz on talking about that. We also talked with Charles Kinney about his transmitters. I think they're made by Gates Air that are at least half, the power amplifier part are liquid cooled. Now I realize you can't just go say, hey, I think we ought to get a liquid cooled transmitter, but what's your opinion on that in the environment that you're in the high desert?
I would be concerned that we are so far from the liquid that you would use to cool the thing, that any little minor failure is going to be we're not turning on a faucet on these mountaintops.
Yeah.
So that would be my concern. And I know some of them are glycol based, and there's all kinds of things in there, and they're closed loop systems. And it's I'm scared of where to get water is a little bit oversimplified, but the Amazon may burn down and we have air, but I don't think I'm going to run out of air to cool my transmitter anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, we discovered in talking with people that there are pluses and minuses of those. And again, I'm not suggesting, hey, open your checkbook and buy some different transmitters that are liquid cooled, but it was just a question I felt like I had to ask. Hey, before we move on to the other topics, is there anything else you want to give a teachable moment about having to do this kind of work up high? The air is a bit thin and it's really hot, and you got to watch your personal safety. I guess you better have two people there, huh?
It'd be nice to have two people there. As I'm sure most of my colleagues will attest, taking two people with you is not something we get to do as frequently as we'd like to. So the answer is, if you can't take two people, make sure somebody knows where you are and how long you're expecting to be and how often you're going to check in, and make sure you know yourself really well and what your limitations are and what it takes to get you through that. Because every time that when someone gets hurt out in the heat, it's because they overextended themselves. So be aware of yourself. Make sure people are aware of where you're at. Those are the two most important things.
When I think about your job and dealing with transmitter sites, I think about Black Mountain, and I've been there. And then I think about Mount Potosi, and I've not been up that. But I got to believe there's two somewhat different sets of risks in these two transmitter sites. Would you care to speak about that?
Much. Black is there are 13 Class C FMs, 5 full power TVs, and a bunch of other stuff that sometimes I try to identify. It doesn't matter though. So the risks there are just so much work going on. You constantly have people on towers doing things. you constantly have to be very conscious of what you're running, who's up there, what they're up to, because you don't want to injure anybody else either, cooking them. And black is the same microclimate as the valley, essentially. So you got to deal with the heat, with the dry. Of course, Potosi is an alpine, high alpine climate, high desert. You can get snow up to your eyeballs up there all winter long. You're hiking in sometimes when you can't get the snowcat, when things don't work out. You are at a bare minimum of 4.5 hours from any emergency support, of which there really isn't any anyway. So carry a suture kit in your truck and stitch yourself up when you get banged up.
Wow. Have you had a serious vehicle accident on Potosi? You ever had something flip over?
I have not. I did, however, this has been a number of years ago, take a Nye County sheriff up there to observe. Someone had left the gate open. It's a Forest Service site, so highly controlled keys, highly controlled access. But someone left the gate open, and a young lady and her friend had gone up there in their little tiny trendy Japanese SUV and gone over the edge. And she had gotten out, but her friend did not. And her friend was killed. Like I say, it's been a number of years ago. I had much less experience with the mountain than I do now. But I knew right then that's not an environment that you can be flippant about, that you, if you don't respect the mountain will keep you. That was probably one of the most poignant moments of my career, is knowing that you know yourself, know what you're in for, or you might not anymore.
Chris Tobin, you notice I didn't follow up on the bring your own sutures statement. I'm not sure I could do that.
Those environments can be rough. It's you got to be, as Tracy points out, all those of us who work at transmitter sites that are not in a normal, I'll say, urban environment. I've had a few sites I've worked at that definitely were nature's domain. Be prepared, understand, and do not try to play the hero. Do it right. And a suture kit, as crazy as it may sound for some of us, that would make sense. And I've been on mountaintop facilities, and I've been in places where, yes, 4.5 hours is actually, that's a good day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, friends, you are listening or watching to This Week in Radio Tech. It's episode 458. Tracy Teagarden, he's the director of engineering, or the chief engineer for the Entercom stations, formerly CBS, now Entercom stations in Las Vegas, Nevada. And there's some rough terrain there, and Tracy's been telling us about that. And Tracy's posts some interesting things on Facebook. So if you want to follow an engineer who does some pretty amazing things, check out Tracy Teagarden on Facebook. Coming up, we've got a couple more projects that Tracy wanted to inform us about. One was a switchover, a big switchover to voice over IP, and that had some certain challenges, and maybe Tracy could highlight a couple of those for us. And then I want to hear about, I for the last 3 years, it seems like occasionally I see pictures that Tracy posts about AM transmitter sites. And I don't know if I'm sorry, Tracy, I don't know if it's one or two sites or what you got going on, but you got a lot of real estate and vertical towers that have AM signals on them. And I want to hear about this thing where you've got apparently 7 AM transmitters on one site. So
3 AMs and 4 FMs on one site.
Oh,
and
7 signals on one site. There you go.
7 signals on one site. And that we refer to this site as, because we're chasing the reliability, 5 nines. It's the temple of 5 nines.
That's what that means. I didn't know. All right, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, Broadcasters General Store. They are a terrific place to get your broadcast gear. They really work hard for you, and they're such nice people. I've been buying from them for, 30 years or so. They're just amazing. And one of their products that they represent is from the folks at Henry Engineering. And the Henry Engineering Sportscaster is the product that we've really been talking about because it is so useful. It is one of Henry's probably most amazing and well thought out, well built products, the Henry Engineering Sportscaster. And what I like about this box, look at that. It's one RU, one rack unit. You can put it in a to-go case. Hey, you could put this thing right next to a Telos Zip 1, for example. And then you'd have a complete kit to send audio back over IP back home. But in one RU, the Sportscaster has got all these features. It has Talent headphone audio distribution. It has talkback and intercom mic facility for the producer, duplex intercom between the producer and the talent. It has producer headphone audio mixing, so the producer can get what he or she wants in their headphones. A headphone mix for the field reporter and for camera operators. It has a field reporter headphone output. It has duplex intercom between producer and field reporter. You get the idea? It's one bullet point after another of things that this box does. And what's the goal here? Well, the goal is to help you produce a really quality sportscast. Of course, it doesn't have to be a sportscast. It could be other kinds of broadcasts. I like to bring out the parade with your you have the Kiwanis Club parade or the Lions parade or the Thanksgiving Day parade, whatever it may be. You can do all kinds of coverage, especially when you have more than one person, an announcer, a color person, a spotter. You got your producer who's not on air, but talking to the talent. You can have a field reporter, a crowd mic, a PA announcer. And then you even have intercom to camera operators if you want that, and headphones to your field reporter. It has a Q bus to audition auxiliary sources, so it does have an aux input. So you've got things that you've recorded beforehand. You want to put those on. And, of course, a main program output to go on air, to go to a streaming encoder, whatever you have. Of course, it's got that on-air output, just like you'd expect, and it's all built into one box. You can use it with the Henry Sports Pods to give your talent, that is the announcer, the color, the spotter, give them their own controls over, how much me do I hear? And do I need to mute my mic, or can I mute my mic, or a cough button? It's all built in. The Henry Sportscaster Sports Broadcast Audio Control System. You can order one today. Give the folks at BGS a call. That's Broadcasters General Store. You can call them at 352-622-7700 or on the web, bgs.cc. And you know what? In a few weeks, our guest, I think is early October, our guest is going to be Hank Landsberg of Henry Engineering. And he's going to talk to us about a lot of the design philosophy and what he does in terms of taking input from engineers, people like us, and turning that into a worthwhile product that is usable for years and years and maybe even decades. I've still got some Henry Engineering products in my radio stations that we've been using literally for decades. So check them out at bgs.cc, the Henry Sportscaster. Hey, it's Kirk Harnack along with Chris Tobin, and Tracy Teagarden is our guest. Chris, you're pretty familiar with VoIP technology up in your neck of the woods, right?
Yeah. I'm using a lot of places. Continue to use it. It's if it's done right, if you plan it out and engineer it properly, you can have a really good time with it.
I heard of a station today. Somebody that we know, as a matter of fact, had their POTS lines cut off. AT&T cut them off. I don't know the whole backstory. There may be more to it than that, but I do know that these POTS lines were part of a choke network. To limit the volume of calls coming in and try to give various listeners, callers, a fair chance at getting into the station. And choke networks are pretty old. And in many locations, you can't seem to get the local incumbent phone company to port those lines, those numbers, over to anybody else. And some of that may be, true limitations, and other may be just that, well, we're not going to. I don't know. But Tracy Teagarden has some exposure and some experience here recently with VoIP lines. Tracy, set this up for us and tell us a little bit about the cutover and what your challenges turned out to be.
This was motivated by cost savings. I had a total of 6 PRIs in this building, well over $5,000 a month. and telephone service. I needed to manage that cost a little better. Built myself a free PBX server. Made one of the most classic mistakes you can make in building a free PBX server, and have subsequently built another one. If I have one bit of advice to give, I don't proclaim to be an expert or that much greater. I do know the experts and can ask them questions, so that's great. But don't use fancy hardware. Just use the simplest computers you can find. I built a super duper computer out of an old CBS firewall, which were Dell 3300 series with a RAID 5 and the whole 9 yards. And that when we got into the Linux world and started routing calls, that RAID controller leaked so much memory, the thing would lock up in 15 minutes. So I got too fancy with the hardware. And I've since gotten the run-of-the-mill desktop that you would see on the sales assistant's desk, hopped it up to where it needed to be, and it's working great. So 6 radio stations, active radio stations, plus the office environment. I can return busy about 17,000 times a second before I run out of processor at this point, which has been enough, except for a couple instances. And I'm paying right about 20% for my phone service than I was 4 months ago.
Can you let us know what carrier you chose, or at least what process you went to choose that carrier?
I chose CenturyLink. Entercom has a national deal with them. And there was a conference call with the CenturyLink people, with the Entercom people, with me. The CenturyLink guy and I got really far down in the weeds about what flags we were going to send each other, and just absolutely bored the hell out of everyone else on the call.
Of course.
But at that time, I felt really comfortable with them and the product and their understanding and their ability to get my numbers during in this building. So whether or not it was a corporate deal and that's what I was going to get anyway, I'm happy I've got it.
So you're using this VoIP service both for business calls and for high volume contesting?
All on one system.
Wow. Oh, on the same free PBX based system.
I have a free PBX that routes to a Cortelco Millennium, which if you've been around telephone since DWiRT, you'll know what that is, because all my hybrids are still ISDN. We're coming in PRI.
Yeah.
So I still need that big iron switch to make my ISDN for me. Then the business office has a Digium Switchvox 380, which has all the nifty little features that office users want. And then I've got 2 of my high volume radio stations, KXQQ and KMXB, true SIP end to end, no ISDN in the middle on PAP adapters or ATAs. People are, every time I say PAP adapters, people say that's a brand name. Fine. Sorry. True ATAs going into analog hybrids. We're doing the rotaries ourselves. We're doing the 384s, the return busy flags ourselves. We're doing all that. Really pleased with the way those are coming out. Now routing into the PRI cards, into the Digium wild cards, and going to the old big iron switch is turning into a little bit of a challenge, because wow, your routing tables end up looking like a Tolstoy novel. But yeah, it is in Russian. I'm really pleased with the way it's coming out, and certainly what I've had to do with, and the learning curve I've had to go through, and the amount of effort that this has taken is certainly worth the money. It's certainly worth, if you're not learning something new every day, why get out of bed? It's been very rewarding.
Wow. I'm sure there's more we can talk about that, but I want to move on to the multi-station facility that you've been talking about. And I'm sorry I got the numbers wrong again. Now, is it 3 AMs and 4 FMs?
3 AMs, 4 FMs. The third FM I can talk about publicly. The third AM I can talk about publicly now. That's KDWN, Beasley's KDWN. Their CP hit the books last week. Has lost their site in Henderson to $1 million residences, and they're moving in with us. This site, I've been the chief engineer of it for 24 years when it was KLUC-AM, and then the 80 other call letters it's had in the meantime. KXST 1140, it's been the main site for it since 1976. It is the Tower 4 is 735 yards from the end of the runway at Nellis Air Force Base.
Ooh, wow.
Yep. Ooh. I've got a great relationship with the Air Force Base. When I built, one of the first things I built at the site was an off-site backup for my 840 for my 50 kilowatt AM. Yep. I've got an off-site backup for one of my AMs. And the tower's about 320 foot. It's 90 degrees at 840. To get permission to build that tower, 800 yards from the Air Force Base, was one phone call.
Really?
Really. And they gave me very clear and concise rules. And I did them. Of course, FAA and conservation and all that was way more than one phone call. But as far as the Air Force Base was concerned, wow, what a pleasant organization to work with in that regard. They told me, here are the rules. You will not have a crane on the site higher than your tower, period. You will call us before you stick a microphone, Mr. Microphone in the air. Before you start working on anything, you will call us. You will have the lights on at sunset when the tower reaches maximum height. Those are the rules. Okay. I said I can agree with that. Then you're clear to build. So did that. That tower also has an 88 to 108 on the side. And all four of my...
that being a wideband FM antenna?
Yep.
Okay.
And, more of a 92 to 108, but all four of my FMs, I have a combiner in the building. It's an ERI antenna combiner, a 125 kilowatt base isolator. Looks like the Jolly Green Giants barbecue. It's fascinating. And I have my wide orbit system mirrored out there. 100% of the audio and the logs. I am really, really hoping for the zombie apocalypse so that I can prove that I did the right thing when nothing else in the world but that site works.
I take it there's a generator there too?
There is a generator there, and there's about to be another generator there because KDWN comes with PEP, with the FEMA site. So not only am I going to have one of their generators, but I'm going to have the EMP proof building with the fiber in and out to put my wide orbit servers in. So
wow.
So you see why I have started calling that site the Temple of Five Nines. It's
it's a tempest hardened facility.
Yes.
You know what? I think we have a better show title there. The Temple of Five Nines. Why don't we call the show that? There's our show title for today. Wow. Tracy, we got a couple more minutes before we need to take a break. Why don't you tell us any more really interesting facts about the building of that multi-station site? I'm a little curious about the AM diplexing and kind of how that progressed and finished up. And then anything. I mean, the story about the Air Force Base was pretty cool. One phone call and that part of the permission was granted. Any other crazy, interesting, unexpected things that happen in building that site and the diplexing?
There's when we trenched in the 840 backup site, my tower contractor, who Denny Todd is one of the greatest human beings I know, did a meticulous job of tracing the lines and then immediately trenched through the coil of excess on the sample lines of one of the towers.
So is this a buried sample line because they all have to be the same length, and you have to bury it in the same environmental conditions as the rest of the line is in, so it all expands and contracts at the same rate and all that.
Yeah, all that. And then some towers are going to be 700 foot from the building and some towers are going to be 100 foot from the building. So that 600 foot coil of wire, when you cut across it, you got to do an awful lot of splicing. So there was that. And we're about to go through that again when we move in the 720. We've gotten our bids for the trenching. We're making our plans. We're getting ready to go on that. But adding the filtering for the 840 to keep all the stations out of each other. My contract engineer is Carl T. Jones Corp. Second to none, in my opinion, did an excellent job. The 840 and the 1140 stay out of each other really well. Burt Goldman is Beasley's contractor. I'm an old Nationwide chief, known Burt for a minute. So that's great. And we're going to build it. We're going to have the 7 stations out there, and then we're going to keep talking to the tenants who are interested in being in on the FM system too, which may happen someday.
Is the site good for a number of Las Vegas FMs, or for backups, or for mains if they wanted to?
It's good for everybody for backups for a lot of reasons. You can run. It has a great view of the valley, sitting up there on the alluvial fan, and it's backed up against the mountains to the north of the valley. So it brings your hat down, your height above average terrain down. Yeah. So I could have literally I can run more power from that site on KXTE than I can on Potosi on my main site because of the difference in hat. I didn't do that. I'm just running the 25 kilowatts per station down there too. But, all around as an FM backup site, it has just been superlative. I'm really pleased with it. And I've got my HD running out there on all 4 of them, analog and HD. Just really pleased with the site and how it's working.
So if you're on the tower that's closest to the Air Force Base, do you get a really good view of the jets taking off or landing?
And you just can't illustrate this with a cell phone camera because it's not there. But when an aircraft like a C-130 or C-32 or an AWACS or one of the enormous aircrafts comes out on the 180 approach and loops around and comes over your towers 40 foot from the top of them, it can make every orifice on your body just clench down hard enough to make diamonds. So there's that. And then the Air Force guys have a great sense of humor. About a year and a half ago, I was repainting. I had a crew in repainting the towers, and they were up the side and they were painting. And here comes a Black Hawk up out of the Air Force Base, comes over, gets about 40 foot from the tower and starts talking, yelling back and forth to the guys painting on the top of the tower. They just wanted to see what was going on, and I radioed up to the crew and said, the government just spent $700 in JP8 to see what you were up to. I hope you're happy. And the A-10s will split the towers below the top of the towers. Between it's a fascinating thing to see and watch and be around.
Well, of course the Air Force wanted there, Chris. You know why? Flight practice, precision flying. Hey, look, it's like before the pilots take off. It's, hey, y'all, watch this.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh man, I'm enjoying this conversation. We got to take a quick break and hear from our friends at Lavos, one of the sponsors of This Week in Radio Tech. Chris is going to have a tip of the week for us. I'm going to try to, and just maybe, because I forgot to warn Tracy about this, maybe Tracy can have a tip that we as engineers can all walk away with and maybe try something new, different, or better. We'll be back in just a minute.
There has probably never been a better time in history to buy a new radio mixing console. Today's consoles are more sophisticated than ever, with more features and functions than you can shake a stick at. But have you noticed how complicated they are? There's a sea of knobs and switches and displays and buttons. Some of them look like you might need a pilot's license to do your show. Well, a board doesn't have to be complicated to be powerful. Just look at the new Ruby mixing surface from Lavo. The first thing you notice is how smooth and streamlined it is. Ruby has lots of cool tech, but what it doesn't have is that confusing ocean of buttons that clutter things up. Now, we all know that there are some console features the Jock only uses once in a while. So why dedicate controls to them? Ruby fixes this problem by moving those once-in-a-blue-moon controls to a touch-sensitive, customizable GUI that happily shares screen space with your other studio software, helping you fight control room clutter. Thanks to this design innovation, talent that use Ruby produce smoother shows with less errors. Controls that are used the most fall naturally to hand, while functions that rarely need adjustment are easily controlled with just a couple of clicks in the context-sensitive GUI. And Ruby has cool features you won't find on other boards, like Auto Mix, an intelligent gain writing function that guarantees the perfect mix for multi-mic morning shows and call-in segments. Dual mode snapshots that instantly switch the motorized faders between on-air and production modes, and enough DSP and I/O options to make even your pro sound pals green with envy. And because quality is as important to Lavo as it is to you, every console is proudly built to fanatically precise standards at Lavo's own factory in Germany. If you're ready to declutter your control room, do yourself a favor. Check out the new Ruby and the other cool Lavo radio tech at www.lawo.com/TWiRT.
Thanks so much, Lavo, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. And if you go to lavo.com/TWiRT, it'll take you right to the radio stuff. You won't have to wade through the $500,000 consoles that are probably not in your budget. You can get right to the radio stuff at lavo.com/TWiRT. It's This Week in Radio Tech. We're about to finish up with Tracy Teagarden, our guest. Also, Chris Tobin is with us. And Chris, I wonder if you might have a tip of the week for us this week.
Tip of the week, yes, a real simple one. I was involved in a couple of projects recently where we were upgrading switches, routing switches, Ethernet switches, and a couple of routers, and discovered that the persons we were working with did not back up the configuration files before they went in to start making changes. Ooh. So when the devices became a brick, I worked with a guy. I said, "Well, do you have the saved files, the config files, as I suggested in the email?" "Oh, is that what you meant?" Yeah, okay, that was several hours of reprogramming. So recently a transmitter was being updated. A friend of mine called up and said, "Hey, we're doing some work on a transmitter. We're doing some firmware updates. What do you suggest?" "Back up the firmware and everything on the configuration files." "Well, yeah, but they said, just do it. Just do it." And thankfully they did, because it turns out that the method they were following to upgrade the firmware, somehow they managed to corrupt the data. And when they went to turn the transmitter on, it was a nasty sound and weird displays, and it was software driven, it's like software defined radio type thing. And they were able to just take the file, USB key, pop it in, go backwards, came back up normal, everything was good, and they went back to figure out what they did wrong, or if there was something else missing or something else going wrong with the transmitter. The reason why they're doing the firmware upgrade. So my suggestion would be, whenever you're working on stuff that's software related, back up the files. Make backups of everything, even if it's the most, innocuous, like, we don't need that. Do it. It's worth it. And then save those files in at least 2 places.
In my 57 years of living, I've figured out that anytime I go through a door and I'm closing the door behind me, I feel, I'm going to lock the door, or it's already locked and I'm closing it. I put my hand in my pocket, see if I got my keys. Of course, I got to make sure I have the right keys, but it's just become habit now. And boy, knock on wood, I haven't locked myself out of any place in a long time, because I've just tapped my pocket. If there's nothing there, they're in the other pocket, or I better not lock this door. Guess what? I don't have the keys. They're inside on the buffet or something like that. Wow. Same thing with if you're going to make a change to a router or a switch, back it up. It usually just takes seconds to back it up.
Well, even if it's an audio console, AOIP or not. I mean, we have a production studio, live performance space. We have a Sony, DMR 100 or DXR 100, and that console has all kinds of moving faders and presets, and you name it. It's 50 inputs, and there's all kinds of scenes we have. We back that up too. You back it up, and you never know. There've been a few times where power hit. Guess what? Calling up the little USB key. In this case, no, this one has a floppy. Bring out the floppy, and sure enough, that's what we got. So, it's worth it. And nowadays, everything, you should just be making copies, backups, and save them properly. And even if you build a server on site at your studios, and that's where you save all your software stuff, and then have hard copies somewhere else, that makes sense.
Yeah. Good advice. Back it up before you tear it up. Tracy, is there any advice you'd like to pass along to our listeners today?
I've had a thought running around my head for a little while, and us as a profession and our mental health, we tend to get inside our heads a little too much. If I have one piece of advice to give today, it's that, golly, our jobs are fun, and do something every day to help you remember that, and do something every day to learn something new, and remember that, you're not selling insurance. You're not doing something else. I don't want to offend anybody by calling their job tedious, but ours aren't. And so many of my colleagues tend to forget that. It would be good if they took some time to remember it.
Man, that is good advice.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, when I was a contract engineer, I actually thought that often. I'm so lucky to have a different challenge every day, related but different. And as long as I was solving it, I felt pretty good. Thank you for helping us remember that, Tracy. Wow, good advice. Remember how blessed we are. I have a little piece of advice. Sometimes these are available for $3 at various stores. This one probably came from Harbor Freight. It's an ammo box, but you can put other stuff in it. There you go. You got a box. That's a nice one.
This is a Harbor Freight Pelican-like substance with the pickup and all that. $9.
I almost bought one of those, and then I didn't because I was busy buying these. But this one has a special purpose, and maybe you got a glimpse of the top already. And for those of you viewing, you can see what it says. And if you can't, it says coffee. It has a Brother P-Touch label on the top, and it says coffee. Now, why does it say coffee? Well, there's no coffee in it now. It's empty, but it sure smells good. Plastic and coffee together. But I take this when we go to the cabin, because the cabin has awful coffee. And so I bring good coffee and my coffee grinder. And so that's the advice. These are cheap. And, I do have some with cables in them, but you got to label them because they're not, you can't see through them. So you've got to label them as to what's in them. All right. That's my advice. It's cheaper than Tupperware. How about that? Tracy and Chris, this has been a real delight to have both of you on the show. I really appreciate, Tracy, you taking some time out from the middle of your day. It must be lunchtime now in Las Vegas, right?
Getting there. And I have a remote to go to tonight on the sports network, which they like me to take care of. And I always appreciate the invite.
Well, we'd like to have you back again sometime. After you do a few more heroic projects, okay?
All right. I'm in minimalist hero mode these days. Just after so long of doing this, you don't have a lot left to prove. So I'll try and do something heroic to bring on the show next time. Well, keeping all the stations on the air is pretty heroic right there. Making the talent happy and giving them good tools is heroism right there too. All right, we got to go. Chris Tobin, thank you for joining us as well. Appreciate you and whatever heroism you're up to this week yourself.
This week, nothing. It's all quiet. It's just recording musicians.
Well, next week on our show, we've got Scott Feibusch. He's our guest. Scott has got, as always, interesting news from the Northeast. And I'm going to see if I can push some tower pictures upon Scott. And if he doesn't have his calendar laid out yet, maybe he'll include a couple of my pictures in his calendar. You think we can talk him into that, Chris?
Sure, why not? There's no reason why. I'm sure we could find one or two.
I hope so. All right, we got to go. You guys have a great day, and thank you for joining us. Thanks to Suncast for producing the show. Makes the show look great. You don't even know he's there. That's the mark of a great producer. Also, thanks to Andrew Zarian, the founder of the GFQ Network. Thanks again to the Telos Alliance, who sponsors my studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, the Telos Alliance studio. We got to go. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.